She abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is...
They said that it was merely another tale about an ESPN contract and that another host was discreetly departing the network. However, a recently leaked video of Stephen A. Smith and Molly Querim has gone viral on the internet, footage that demands responses rather than merely posing queries. Why didn't Molly provide a warning before leaving? What was Stephen A. concealing on the set? We reveal the startling footage that ESPN did not want you to see tonight, and why the face on the first tape might undergo a complete transformation as a result of this viral moment. ESPN was rocked by the sudden departure. Due to a recently leaked video of Molly Querim and Stephen A. Smith that went viral and the ensuing dramatic consequences, the internet is currently on fire. There is more to this celebrity rumor than meets the eye. This provides a glimpse of ESPN's most potent collaboration breaking down in real time. And additionally, what you're going to hear will permanently alter your perception of Stephen A. and Molly. Consider it. Molly held the desk down for more than 10 years as the face of First Take. The following minute is gone. There was no send-off, no farewell, and no goodbyes to the viewers who had watched every morning for 10 years in a row. She didn't leave in style. She left nothing but unresolved issues and a deluge of conjecture in her wake. And now that this video has resurfaced, viewers are making connections that ESPN fervently hoped they wouldn't.
She abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend.
On live television, Stephen A. Smith choked while attempting to explain the inexplicable. He wanted everyone to think that this was just a contract dispute. However, the timing, the stillness, and the abruptness all shouted that something else was happening behind the scenes, so you and I know better. To be clear, this was not a smooth departure. Executives at ESPN rushed to present it in that light. However, the reality was acknowledged even by their own content president. They were totally taken aback by the timing. There was no send-off strategy for the network. Not even a replacement was prepared. The transition wasn't easy. This landing was an emergency.
She abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend.
Her income and reputation disappear in an instant. Money is mentioned by some. Indeed, the numbers are important. Even after 20 years at the network, she refused to sign the deal that ESPN offered her because it was so demeaning. Recall that Stephen A. Smith secured a whopping $20 million deal for himself? She wasn't even given a little portion of that, Molly. Fans couldn't help but notice the hypocrisy when Stephen A. went on television and boasted about how he had pushed for other colleagues to get compensated. Because why didn't Molly get cut if he truly stood up for everyone? However, it appears from the leaked video that money wasn't the only factor. Molly had been advocating behind the scenes for a larger position, her own program, and her own platform. She wanted more after years of serving as the moderator and taming two inflated egos. Additionally, ESPN refused to give it to her. She therefore didn't simply go when the contract negotiations broke down. She closed the door firmly. Furthermore, Stephen A. wasn't prepared for it. On his radio show, he said that Molly's decision caught him off guard and that she didn't even mention it to the man she had worked with for 10 years.
This is emergency exit. This is emergency.
However, let's not act as though Stephen A. is an innocent spectator in this situation. Tensions rise, anger festers, and then it blows over when you're earning $20 million and the person seated next to you is told they're not even worth a fifth of that. The viral video enters the picture at this point. There have been videos of Molly leaving the set in the middle of a performance. Not kidding, not laughing, but just done.
It came as a shock. I was not aware that this is something that she was contemplating doing. But in the end, she made her decision. And we have to move on as a show.
People dismissed it as playful at the time. But now fans are re-watching it with fresh perspectives in light of her abrupt departure. Was that the start of the end, or was it just a gag? The reason for this is that Molly's stillness is quite loud. She's never done an interview, she hasn't revealed anything. Her Instagram story was the only source of information.
5. Does he make your top 5?
Okay, I'm leaving.
Damn it, I'm going Matthew Stafford in that case.
It sounds professional and kind, but take note of what's absent. Stephen A. is not mentioned. There is only a brief farewell wrapped in appreciation, with no reference to ESPN officials. Additionally, that silence has stoked rumors that Molly wasn't simply quitting her job. She was leaving Stephen A. by himself. According to some sources, she even desired separation from his over-the-top demeanor, his incessant self-promotion, and his control over every show. The outcome is indisputable, regardless of whether that is accurate. Fans are certain that the tension between Molly and Stephen A. was far more intense than anyone had thought based on the released footage. The most startling aspect is that we haven't even reached the video that ESPN does not want you to see, because the films you are about to view imply that Molly's leaving had more to do with her departure than contracts or professional goals. It might have been an attempt to flee a poisonous atmosphere driven by unbridled egos, money, and power. One theme keeps showing up repeatedly as you go deeper into this debate: strength. Who owns it? Who doesn't? What occurs if the balance leans too much in one direction? Stephen A. Smith has been the unchallenged monarch of ESPN for many years. He knows it, the executives know it, the audience knows it. He is more than just a pundit. The brand is him. Schedules for entire shows are centered around him. His voice, theatrics, and ability to control an argument are what determine his ratings. What does that mean for Molly? The woman who spent 10 years at the same desk. The woman who oversaw the mayhem each morning and took in Stephen A.'s verbal barrage against anybody who dared to oppose him. She was more than a moderator. She served as the fulcrum that prevented the concert from becoming completely crazy. Nevertheless, ESPN treated her as though she were expendable when it came time to renegotiate. Executives acknowledged that Molly's departure was unsightly. They knew that the money was off, they knew that the offer was offensive, but they chose to let her walk rather than fix it. Why? Because Stephen A. was irreplaceable in their eyes. Molly wasn't. You can learn everything there is to know about ESPN's culture from that icy calculation. They will invest millions in their star while telling everyone else to be thankful for scraps. Additionally, Stephen A. didn't support his argument. He boasted on television a few days before Molly's sudden resignation about how he had pushed for other network talent to get paid. He portrayed himself as a defender of justice and a savior. But it's not just irony, it's treachery when the woman seated next to him is unable to even obtain a contract extension. Fans also saw it. Comments criticizing him flooded social media. Molly's bag will be the only one that Stephen A. will fight for. It's funny how he can boast about helping Shannon Sharpe while disparaging his own co-host. Maybe that's why his on-air farewell seemed so phony.
Earlier than I intended, and not in the way I hoped. To my First Take family, after much reflection, I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter and step away from First Take. Hosting this show has been one of the greatest honors of my career.
It seems encouraging on the surface. However, look past the obvious. He is separating himself. He is taking care to avoid accepting responsibility. That's her story to tell, knowing full well that her silence would protect him, is what he's hiding behind. Because let's face it, if Molly ever decided to speak up and share her tale, it might bring ESPN to its knees. And perhaps that's the reason she hasn't said anything yet. Industry insiders speculate that Molly's contract contains a quiet clause behind the scenes. In essence, she will continue to get paid until the end of the year if she remains silent. That money vanishes if she speaks. In basic terms, Ben Koo of Awful Announcing left with months remaining on a contract, no goodbye episode, and no opportunity to defend herself. It sounds like a deal reached under duress. An arrangement in which one party sought to preserve their golden goose at all costs. Yet the fissures were evident long before she left. A video of Molly interrupting Stephen while clearly irritated on set is currently making a comeback on TikTok and Twitter. Her eyes screamed what her words failed to convey in a mid-ramble. Supporters are referring to it as the moment she lost it. Perhaps it was. Imagine what that must have been. "10 years of being ignored, 10 years of being quiet while others took center stage. After 10 years of providing support, you were told that your value is lower than that of coworkers who have been there for half as long. Everybody has a breaking point eventually. And for Molly, that moment arrived when ESPN attempted to ensnare her in yet another cycle of undervaluation." Since this is more than simply a Molly Querim narrative, let's zoom out now. There is a trend here. Take a look at what transpired with her former co-host, Max Kellerman. He will debate Stephen A. like being a regular person one day. Without even saying goodbye, the next one was sent off to morning radio. Why? Because Stephen A. no longer desired him. Observe Jamel Hill, who was forced out for having the audacity to voice her opinions. Take Michelle Beadle, who was shut out after questioning the current quo. The message is unambiguous. You're disposable if you're not Stephen A. And for the first time, it demonstrates the cost of that imbalance, which is why this released video is so significant. It illustrates what occurs when one voice has too much clout, when a single personality takes over everything in their environment. And ESPN was completely mistaken if they believed that Molly's silence would shield them, since the audience is not naive. They're trying to put things together. As they examine the videos, they make connections and conclude that the narrative we were given, that it was about a contract dispute, does not make sense.
Because again, that's her story to tell. But I do think it's important that I started off the show by just acknowledging my love and appreciation for her and what she's meant to me and what she's meant to the show.
Here we are then. Fans are furious, ESPN is frantically trying to preserve its reputation, and Stephen A. is acting as if nothing is wrong with the leaked tape that is going viral. However, Molly's voice, the most crucial component, is still absent. Until she speaks, we are forced to make assumptions, decipher hidden meanings, re-watch each clip with new eyes, and search for the point at which everything went wrong. And perhaps that explains the scandal's widespread attention, because it's important to consider what didn't happen as well as what did. The reality that is still being hidden, the goodbye that never materialized, and the unspoken words. This is more significant than sports television. Don't get me wrong. This has to do with how people are silenced by power. This has to do with how businesses would prioritize protecting their celebrities over everyone else. And this is about what occurs when the one they are trying to quiet chooses to leave instead. Furthermore, the film becomes darker in part 2 of this story, so we're only getting started. That's where the whispers regarding Stephen A.'s role in Molly's exit cease being whispers and start being accusations. You won't have the same perspective on ESPN after hearing what insiders have to say next. Was Stephen A. Smith the target of Molly's escape? Millions of admirers are asking the same question that you have by now. Was Molly Querim attempting to flee Stephen A. Smith, or was her flight mostly motivated by money? Because the evidence is incriminating, and when you go back and examine the leaked video, the remarks, the timing, everything suggests something far more serious than a botched contract negotiation. Let's begin with what Stephen A. has to say. He made an effort to portray Molly's departure as merely business-related when it was publicized.
Whatever happened is it wasn't amicable. This is not them parting on good terms.
It seems innocuous enough, doesn't it? But pay more attention. It is none of your concern what the details are. It goes beyond simple deflection. That's being defensive. That person is attempting to quell rumors before they start. Additionally, a phrase like that just heightens fans' suspicions in a media environment where everything is scrutinized, particularly when you consider what transpired next. Stephen A. couldn't avoid making it about himself. He launched into one of his usual tirades against power, money, and bosses. In essence, he is reminding everyone that he has the power.
Quite frankly, none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her.
Go over that again. Perhaps she is frustrated in part because of Stephen A. It's not just any YouTuber making assumptions. The dots are being connected by a former ESPN insider. And it's easy to understand why. The golden boy of ESPN is Stephen A. Smith. He serves as the network's spokesperson. He receives primetime slots, luxury jets, and blockbuster contracts. The suits give him silk tissues when he sneezes. Molly had to struggle for scraps in the meantime. She abruptly leaves when she demands more, a larger role, her own program, and a salary commensurate with her 10 years of devotion. Is it a coincidence or a result? Because this is the problem. This is not the first time we have witnessed this occur. Remember Max Kellerman? On paper, Stephen A. acknowledged that he wanted Max off the first take. Max vanished a few months later. And now, Molly. Do we truly think that her sudden departure had nothing to do with Stephen A., ESPN's most influential voice? Let us examine the timing. A week before Molly's departure, Stephen A. boasted on air about his efforts to get Shannon Sharpe's contract and his efforts to court additional network talent. However, there was silence when Molly's contract negotiations broke down. No backing, no public defense, just generalizations. And that's where the hypocrisy is most noticeable. He will stand up for other people, but not for the woman who sat next to him for 10 years. The person he frequently relied on, referred to as a friend and collaborator. When fans saw, they weren't nice. The tweets came pouring in. Molly is the only person to whom Stephen A. is loyal. He defended Shannon, but abandoned Molly. This is how it ends after 10 years of dating? Horrible. Perhaps the most significant aspect is Molly's own response, or lack thereof. Her farewell on Instagram was dishonorable. Too elegant, almost.
It makes me think maybe Stephen A. is a part of her frustration.
Well, part of that clip of Stephen A. Smith yesterday that dealt with this subject, he went on this diatribe.
Take note of what's absent. Stephen A. is not mentioned. No recognition of their collaboration. The individual who allegedly referred to her as a friend didn't even receive a thank you. Molly is a very polished person, so the omission wasn't by accident. It was a silent protest, a declaration. Furthermore, in this instance, silence speaks louder than words. The leaks don't end there, though. According to rumors circulating within ESPN, Molly had become more uneasy with Stephen A.'s oversized presence. Not only the disparity in wealth, but also in power. He was in charge of the show. He controlled the flow. Even when she made an effort to speak up, it was obvious whose voice was heard. An insider gave a direct description of it. The traffic police officer was Molly. It was the bulldozer, Stephen A. The bulldozer eventually prevails. Just take a look at how quickly the network shifted when she left, if you believe it was dramatic. They did not defend her. They didn't implore her to remain. They started trying to find new hosts right away, bringing in substitutes as if she hadn't been there. Executives freely acknowledged that they were already getting ready to phase her out. That tells you everything. She wasn't considered necessary, she was viewed as interchangeable. The heartbreaking aspect is that Molly was more than simply a moderator. She served as the glue to the show, steadying a hand and preventing two enormous egos from blowing up on live television. First Take devolves into mayhem without her. However, that was irrelevant to Stephen A. and ESPN. Then Molly departed. Not with a bow on top, not with a final episode, and not at the end of the year. She departed right away, which indicates one thing to us. It was personal. No matter what, consider it. She could have coasted to December, collected the checks, and played nice if it had only been about the money. Rather, she tore the rope off the wall and left midship. It's not business. That's surviving. Fans are certain that the leaked video shows that she wasn't leaving ESPN because of this. She was about to leave Stephen A. Smith. This is when things become even more gloomy. The narrative becomes more obscene if you examine the trend of how ESPN treats its personnel, particularly women. After battling with the network's star system, powerful women Michelle Beadle, Jamal Hill, and Carrie Champion were eventually cast aside or forced out. Molly might be the most recent addition to that list. Additionally, there were leaked videos of her leaving the set, her irate expressions, and the sudden silence. They are more than merely viral events. They serve as evidence. Evidence of a power disparity, a poisonous culture, and the fact that one man's dominion came at the expense of everyone else in his immediate vicinity. And now that the video is going viral online, that empire is beginning to fall apart, because viewers aren't just observing, they're requesting responses. They're demanding transparency. They're curious about the actual events involving Molly Querim and Stephen A. Smith, and we'll reveal the hypothesis that ESPN is most afraid of in Part 3. Molly Querim may have receipts proving that she left not only because she was frustrated or short on cash, but because she had the power to reveal something far more significant. And furthermore, Stephen A.'s empire might not only suffer a setback, but might completely fall apart if those receipts are ever discovered. The receipts that might put an end to his empire. Part 3 is when we face the likelihood that Molly Querim didn't just leave. Rather, she left with receipts if Part 1 depicted the shock, and Part 2 the treachery. And one of the most potent empires in sports media might be overthrown if those receipts ever make it to the public eye. Because nobody ever quits ESPN in this manner. Let's not fool ourselves. Nobody suddenly disappears without even a farewell performance after 2 decades of devotion, 10 years at the same desk, and millions of fans. Unless something far more significant is simmering beneath the surface. What precisely might Molly be concealing then? First, the money. We know ESPN tried to minimize her. It was verified by multiple sources that the contract discussions were unsightly. We know she felt underappreciated, and we know Stephen A.'s enormous $20 million deal sparked discontent across the network. But it was more than just the paycheck. According to reports, Molly advocated for her own platform as a host, voice, and independent celebrity, and she also saw the writing on the wall when ESPN refused to change its position. Then the receipts theory enters the picture. Insiders acclaim that Molly was more than just irritated. She was recording conversations, conditions of contracts, disrespectful events captured on camera, and private text messages that demonstrate how lopsided ESPN's allegiance had become. Think about it. You can't work for a network like ESPN for 20 years and not learn how to defend yourself. You don't survive 10 years apart from Stephen A. Smith without realizing how easily you can be held accountable. Maybe, just maybe, Molly left on her own terms, with enough evidence to ensure that ESPN couldn't completely slant the story in their favor.
Intended, and not in the way I hoped. To my First Take family, after much reflection, I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter and step away from First Take. Hosting this show has been one of the greatest honors of my career.
Take note of the pattern. She will continue to recount that story again and over, like a warning almost. He seems to be indicating that we're done if she speaks. ESPN has entered damage control mode as a result. They pushed executives in front of cameras to patch things up within hours of her resignation. In a laudatory statement, Burke Magnus, president of programming at ESPN, praised Molly's professionalism, poise, and 10 years of contributions. It seemed encouraging on the surface, but behind it was a cry of terror. Fear that Molly could use her farewell as an opportunity to vent. Fear that she will expose the true toxicity of the culture. Fear that behind the cameras, ESPN's golden boy, Stephen A. Smith, may finally be seen by the public for who he really is. Don't get me wrong, Stephen A. is more than just a commentator. He is a company. He represents ESPN as a whole. They have based their entire enterprise around him. His demise might have a devastating effect on the entire network. Molly is aware of that as well. What does this leave us with then? We are left in a state of stalemate. ESPN and Stephen A. are on one side, desperate to hide the facts. Molly, on the other hand, may be holding the receipts and perhaps the silence. Additionally, the public is already becoming agitated. Podcasts, YouTube channels, and even mainstream media are making assumptions about what actually transpired. Some blame the disparity in wealth, while others blame the power dynamic. Others say that Molly and Stephen A. had a personal spat that extended well beyond the cameras. The outcome is the same in either scenario. ESPN appears to be at risk. Stephen A. appears to be defensive. Furthermore, Molly seemed to be the only one who left with her dignity unharmed. Ironically, ESPN may have made her louder than ever by attempting to quiet her, because the world will pay attention as soon as she starts her own platform, whether it is a podcast, a show, or even just one interview, not for debate or sports banter, but for the truth, the real reason behind her departure, the reality of ESPN's business practices, the real story of Stephen A. Smith. Furthermore, that reality might be explosive. Consider the repercussions: sponsors, alliances, and potential employees. There could be repercussions for the entire business if Molly chooses to expose ESPN. Fans are already hankering after it. One question is causing social media to go crazy. When is Molly going to say something? The leaks, the video, the awkward silences, the viral videos of Molly storming off set, Stephen A. fumbling his goodbyes, and execs frantically trying to explain the unexplained. And those leaks are already very bad. Because the story is evident even in the absence of Molly's receipts. A woman dedicated 10 years to a single show and 20 years to a firm. She became a fixture in millions of homes, maintained order, and conducted herself with grace. She was fired when she eventually demanded the respect, opportunity, and just compensation she was due. And the dismissal is becoming widely shared. This is the question that you must ask yourself. If Molly Querim experienced this, what does it mean for the industry as a whole? To defend the powerful, how many other voices have been marginalized, underpaid, and pushed out? And perhaps that is what this scandal's real legacy is. Not only did First Take as we know it disappear, but Molly and Stephen A.'s relationship also ended, and a system that feeds off of silence was revealed. Molly is quiet for the time being, but silence is fleeting, and since the truth always comes out, don't be surprised if Stephen A.'s business implodes in real time when she finally speaks and those receipts are made public. And when it happens, ESPN will have lost the faith of the audience they rely on, in addition to losing a moderator. And ESPN is most afraid of that aspect of this story. This concludes the video. You can view the cards on your screen to see more captivating videos like this one.